Victory Studios in downtown Little Rock, this is Capitol View.
And good Sunday morning to you. Welcome into Capitol View. I'm Jay Bird. It's been an active time in Washington, and I was able to catch up with Representative French Hill late last week to talk about Biden's first year in office and how to begin tackling inflation.
You guys have been pretty busy up there of late. I know the big thing this past week, Joe Biden kind of addressing the nation. What did you kind of take away from that whole, 2-hour spiel, kind of the back and forth with reporters as well?
Well, Jay, it's good to be with you. Thanks for the invitation. Yes, we had the 1-year anniversary of the Biden presidency this week. I said to many of my friends, if the Biden presidency was a new show streaming on Netflix or HBO, it would have been canceled after the first season because it was such a disappointment to so many voters in 2020, in my view, because Joe Biden campaigned on being less divisive. He was going to bring the country together. He was going to take his 50 years of public service and change the tone in Washington. And so when he did his 2-hour press conference the other day, he kept saying that things were going great on the border, in national policy, in the economy, in the fight against COVID. And that's not what I'm hearing from my constituents in Central Arkansas. And then finally, he made a big point of saying, I'm not Bernie Sanders. But look, Jay, every policy proposal from the Democrats that has come out of the White House has been one of Senator Sanders' left of center priorities.
I know, too, he kind of made mention of, what are Republicans even for? Because in his opinion, it seems to be they're just against our success as an administration. So I guess, just you personally, how would you respond to something like that? And is it a case of, we just don't want the Biden administration to succeed? Or is it just more of a matter of, how do they go about trying to succeed?
Right. It's such a good question. And it's actually a very fair question because all along during that first year, Republicans have reached out to the Biden administration in each of the key crises that our nation has faced and offered concrete proposals to work together to make them better. Let's just take them one at a time. Let's take the border crisis. I hear from my constituents in Central Arkansas, they're concerned about the border security issue. We've interdicted 1.7 million people, the most ever. We've had more getaways who come into our country. We've had the largest interdictions of fentanyl ever, and the border is open. And it's because Joe Biden canceled in his first month of office all the Trump policies that were working. So Republicans have a solution. Go back to some of those Trump border policies, keep building the wall that Congress funded for that construction, partner with our states. And I don't want to belabor the point, but whether we're talking about inflation or COVID testing or foreign policy issues with Iran or Ukraine or NATO, or, as I say, fighting inflation, which is affecting all of us, Republicans do have concrete proposals for that, and we have many times offered them, and they've been rejected by the president.
And let's kind of get into inflation. Obviously, at a 40-year high, kind of double what we've seen maybe in the past decade or so from year to year. I think it was kicking around 7%, if I remember the numbers correctly. How do we combat that? And kind of you from a little bit of a banking background, what are some of those steps that could realistically be taken, in your opinion, to kind of reel this thing in?
Well, I've been talking about this since the summer of 2020 as we were coming out of the absolute worst part of the pandemic from the standpoint of shutting the economy down. We were beginning to cope with it, like going back to school, going back to travel. We still didn't have the vaccine. So in the fall of last year, in the summer, I said we should begin to remove the monetary policy stimulus at the Federal Reserve, where they're keeping interest rates at zero, and they're buying $120 billion per month, so over $1 trillion per year of federal debt. That's what we should have started tapering that. They call it tapering, and we should have begun to reduce those purchases over a year ago, number one. Number two, we should not be spending money like drunken sailors in Washington, borrowed money, and that's where the Biden administration could change their policy. So we should reduce the fiscal borrowed money stimulus. And then finally, we should remove any barrier to getting truck drivers in the cab, getting workers back on the line, getting ships unloaded at the ports. And those three steps will help us lower inflationary expectations. You said that year over year was about 7%, the worst since 1984. I think it's going to get better in 2022.
Yeah, you mentioned the trucking industry. I know there's some looking into some federal rules that would allow 18 to 20-year-olds to cross state lines. I mean, here in Arkansas, there's maybe not a whole lot of that. Obviously, on the eastern side, you've got right over on the other side in Memphis, maybe parts of Texarkana, maybe driving into Dallas, something like that. I mean, kind of what's your take on that? And do you think that would actually alleviate a lot of the issues here, just being allowed to have maybe that small number of drivers to be able to go beyond their borders?
Thirdly, I think we should change temporarily the 2019 rule, if my memory's right, on how many hours a truck driver can drive per week. And just with maybe a modest increase, help clear the log jam out on the West Coast, for example. And so those are three ideas that might aid the logistics bottlenecks.
And when we come back, more of my conversation with Congressman French Hill. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
Welcome back into Capitol View. More of my conversation with Congressman French Hill as we tackle the possibility of Russia maybe invading the Ukraine.
Do you believe or do you hope that if Russia does try to intervene there in Ukraine, do you think that the United States, NATO, will have the gumption to actually respond?
Again, Jay, a very important question. And over the last few weeks, I've consulted with our allies in London, in Central Europe. I've talked to former commanders of NATO. And the number one issue that we should be doing is having a unified front for deterrence. NATO countries should be providing training and lethal aid to the Ukraine. We supported that in the National Defense Authorization Act, and I've called on President Biden to immediately release that additional lethal aid to Ukraine. And that's an important part of deterrence, because if Russia goes into Ukraine, as the president, I think, mistakenly intimated in his rambling press conference, that's a mistake. They should have no possible window to invade Ukraine. And so it's very important that all of Europe, the United States, NATO, say no. Crimea, Biden, Obama let Putin have Crimea. George W. Bush allowed him to cross the border into Georgia. Obama led him to partner with Assad to murder thousands of people with poisonous gas, and Putin's paid no price. So, of course, he's feeling a little cocky here. So what America has to do is say, no, you're not crossing the border, period, full stop. And we need to do that by arming the Ukrainians, training the Ukrainians, and every country in Europe and the U.S. say no.
Let's kind of switch gears here to the pandemic. Obviously, something that's still lingering around here. I know the big decision, this was maybe a little over a week ago, but since we got you here. What did you make of the Supreme Court's decision on OSHA and the using sort of them as a way to kind of mandate vaccinations?
Well, I did not support a one-size-fits-all OSHA mandate for all employers with 100 employees or more. Having been a longtime previous business owner of a business with more than 100 employees for a long, long time, my view was, look, employers already have an obligation to keep their workplaces safe and to get the job done on behalf of their customers and keep their customers safe, depending on what the nature of their work is. So let them work that out themselves based on work conditions. And the OSHA approach, I thought, was just a hammer hitting a tack. So I support the vaccine. As you know, I've been vaccinated. My dad, 96 years old, next Friday has been vaccinated. My kids. And I think everybody should consult with their physician about, is the vaccine right for them to keep them safe? But every workplace should work that out, in my opinion, for themselves. So I was glad the Supreme Court struck it down. It's part, Jay, of this supply chain barrier. We're losing thousands of workers. Some people estimate around 5% of the workforce doesn't want to get the vaccine, either due to a health condition they have, a conscience condition, conviction that they have. So we need to show some flexibility here, because we've got to keep this economy working and keep people safe. We can do both.
Obviously, the federal government sending out millions upon millions of at-home test kits. Is this something that you kind of were behind? Or should it be more into, sort of the public aspect of testing, or is this, kind of one of those things where it's like, this is an all right idea?
Testing's important because, particularly with Omicron, remember, vaccinated people can get the disease and spread it, and unvaccinated people can get the disease and spread it. And so testing is a way to make sure that if you're symptomatic and suddenly feel sick, you can get a quick test and then stay away from others for 5 days. And that's a way, just like when we have flu season, it's a way to help people protect each other. So I support tests. And what's frustrating about this, Jay, is that Joe Biden had money for testing that he diverted months ago from testing to housing illegal immigrants on the border, $2 billion. And on top of that, he was recommended a testing plan several months ago in a White House meeting, and he rejected it. So he's late to the party on testing. As to sending the tests out, it seems cumbersome to me to do that. I think a more elegant way might be to let people have a voucher to just get a test at Walgreens when they need one. And take it home, as opposed to actually physically mailing test kits out to people. And if you think about what we just talked about, I might need to be tested, I don't know, once a week or something like that for several weeks when there's a spike going on in my community. So sending somebody 3 boxes doesn't seem to be very responsive. So I think some sort of a voucher that allows low-income or moderate income families to have access to a test might be more an intelligent way of using federal money.
Anybody that follows me on social media knows I'm a big hockey guy. I love the sport. Go Panthers. We're winning the cup this year. But you guys had a pretty monumental vote in the House this past week here, voting to give Willie O'Ree I believe it was the Congressional Gold Medal. And basically, for anybody who doesn't know, Willie O'Ree was kind of basically the Jackie Robinson of hockey. So, kind of, like I said, piggybacking off of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, to be able to cast that vote for a guy like that, in my opinion anyways, not as heralded as he probably should be when it does come, just to American sport and just even the landscape. The way we kind of do, Jackie Robinson.
Well, I agree with you. It was an honor to cast the vote. 426-0 is always a good thing in the House of Representatives. 1958, think about that environment and think about the skill level, talent that he had as a Bruin. So breaking the color barrier, being that recognized for an outstanding player in a very, very competitive, tough sport, now being recognized in the House with the Congressional Gold Medal, I would only simply say it's fantastic, but it's awful late.
Absolutely awful late. And I guess, too, what do you think took so long to kind of recognize a guy like this? And maybe not necessarily from a congressional gold medal perspective, but just even in sort of the mainstream. Because, again, everybody knows who Jackie Robinson is, but not a lot of people know who Willie O'Ree is.
Hey, look, too many people in the South, I think, is the answer. No, I mean, seriously, I really think it connects with the American cultural traditions spread across from coast to coast, and just how passionate we are about football and baseball, and how hockey is a northern climb sport, and it just doesn't get the attention it deserves. I get to have an education on it every day because Tom Emmer of Minnesota, my good friend who went to the floor to pay tribute, is my coach when it comes to all things hockey. And it's an awesome sport. But I really do think part of it is just how our culture is so overwhelmed with football, basketball, and baseball.
Well, anytime you need some hockey pointers, like I said, I'm your guy.
I know who to call.
Yeah, exactly. I know you guys follow me on Twitter too, so I've got the niche sport locked up there. Boss, we always do appreciate the time. Safe flights and all that good stuff. We'll do it again soon.
You bet, Jay. Thanks for having me.
And after we pay some bills, what's next when it comes to the Voting Rights Act and boosting trooper pay here in Arkansas? You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.
We're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
Welcome back into Capitol View. The U.S. Senate failed to pass voting rights legislation, delivering a huge blow to Democrats, but not an unexpected one. Despite failing to pass the legislation several times now, Democrats vow they're not giving up. Our Washington correspondent, Alexandra Limon, reports on what options they have left.
Senate Democrats fighting for voting rights is not over.
After another failure to advance federal voting rights legislation, Democrats could decide to break up the package into individual bills. Oregon Senator Ron Wyden says there are provisions he strongly favors.
Vote by mail started off in Oregon and started off bipartisan.
Since the 2020 election, dozens of states have passed or are trying to pass laws that Democrats say restrict voting.
We were making a lot of progress until Donald Trump, came along and started spewing lies about vote by mail.
Earlier this week, Utah Senator Mitt Romney said Democrats should focus on working with Republicans on what he sees as the real threat to elections.
And that is the corruption of the counting of the ballots, the certification of elections, and the congressional provisions for accepting and counting a slate of electors.
Senator Romney and other Republicans appear open to reforming the Electoral Count Act to make it harder to overturn the results of future elections. Democrats, including the White House, support that idea.
We just have always wanted to be clear that it was not a substitute for voting rights legislation.
If people can't vote initially, you don't even get to that stage.
And they say they'll also keep pushing to increase access to the ballot. In Washington, Alexandra Limon.
Hospitals are dealing with supply chain issues much like any of us are, except their orders usually a lot bigger. Lisa Farmer handles the supply chain for Baptist Health Systems and said that how they acquire supplies has evolved during the pandemic, but also how some of the supplies are even used. Farmers also are, as always, on the phone trying to make sure they can acquire what they need and to try to forecast when they will need certain things. There are times they even have to figure out workarounds for things, but she said even when they knock out one problem, usually not much time to celebrate it.
We literally count it every day. And I look at those counts on a daily basis to make sure we don't need to make any adjustments. So do I ever take a deep breath and think I can kind of relax? I haven't found that place yet. I'm waiting on it. I'm hoping that maybe this year I'll be able to.
Farmer said hospitals have fundamentally changed how they stock their facilities. They used to run on lower backup supply options, but now many have stockpiles of things to make sure they can make it through times of high demand, lower supply. She said Baptist does support other facilities and needs also. They have donated masks to the Little Rock School District, and they've also helped outfit more rural hospitals throughout the state. Governor Asa Hutchinson presented in his budget a raise for state troopers. The goal is to help with low retention and recruitment numbers by raising starting pay and incremental pay based on rank and other factors. Our Cassandra Webb elaborates.
The numbers tell a very, very real story. There's less folks wanting to do this job.
Cabinet Secretary for the State Department of Public Safety, Jamie Cook, says it's time for a shakeup in pay for our law enforcement officers.
They have a heart to do this, but they've also got families to support.
Cook says a $7.4 million state investment would do just that.
If we have expectations as high as we do for law enforcement, which are fair expectations, but we have to be fair with the investment.
Arkansas lags behind our neighbors, Missouri, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Texas when it comes to starting pay that sits now at about $46,500 a year. The proposal would put Arkansas State Police salaries only behind Texas and the southern region states.
We haven't finalized our formula yet, but our hope is that our start will be between 52 and 55.
Cook says the investment would also help with struggling recruitment numbers. In 2013, more than 1,300 people wanted to be an Arkansas State police officer.
In 2022, for the school that we're about to start, we had 226.
Now, some critics of the proposal say local law enforcement agencies will lose officers for higher pay with the state. Cook says that's not a new worry, since historically they've had higher salaries than most local and county departments anyway.
What we hope is that, as we raise salaries, that local and county governing bodies will recognize that maybe they could try to figure out a way to reallocate some of their general funds and invest it into law enforcement.
And lawmakers will begin on this and many other topics on our favorite day, AR-leg, Valentine's Day, to begin the fiscal session. Look it up on Twitter. Now, if this proposal is approved, the new salaries will kick in at the start of the state's fiscal year. That's July 1st. And we're back to wrap it up after this. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.